The site of Göbekli Tepe is a series of circular enclosures, but then in the center of each enclosure you have two particularly big T-shaped pillars of limestone.
For a long time, Göbekli Tepe has confused scientists and historians. Big stone pillars, detailed carvings of animals, and a site that is 12,000 years old, long before humans were thought capable of such things, have made experts rethink history. How could people who hunted and gathered food build such a massive place without writing, metal tools, or advanced skills? Now, new AI research is shaking up what we thought we knew, showing a hidden truth that questions history itself. Could it be that everything we learned about early humans is wrong? Join us in this video as we discuss the details. Göbekli Tepe's 12,000-year-old lie exposed. Göbekli Tepe is one of the most important archaeological sites ever discovered, and it has completely changed how experts understand early human history. Located in southeastern Turkey, this ancient site dates back to around 9,600 BCE, making it roughly 12,000 years old. This means it is far older than the Egyptian pyramids, Stonehenge, or any other known monumental structure. At the time Göbekli Tepe was built, humans were believed to be simple hunter-gatherers who moved from place to place in search of food. The existence of such a large and complex site from this early period raises serious questions about what ancient people were truly capable of achieving. The size of Göbekli Tepe alone makes it difficult to explain using traditional ideas about early societies. The site covers an area roughly equal to 20 modern football fields. Within this space are at least 20 large stone enclosures, many of which are still buried underground and not yet fully explored. These enclosures were not built randomly. They were carefully planned and laid out, suggesting long-term thinking and coordination. Building something on this scale would have required many people working together over a long period of time, as well as a steady supply of food and resources. This level of organization does not fit the image of small, struggling groups simply trying to survive day to day. One of the most striking features of the site is its massive stone pillars. Each enclosure contains large T-shaped limestone pillars that can reach up to 18 feet in height. Some of these pillars weigh as much as 50 tons, which is about the weight of several large buses combined. These stones were not found lying around on the surface. They were cut directly out of solid bedrock at the bottom of the hill and then transported up to the top. The pillars were then carefully positioned upright within the stone enclosures. This alone would have been an enormous task, even by modern standards. Modern engineers have pointed out that moving stones of this size today would normally require heavy machines, cranes, and advanced tools. However, there is no evidence that the builders of Göbekli Tepe had access to metal tools, wheels, or animals used for heavy labor. Despite this, the stones were moved uphill and placed with surprising accuracy. This suggests that the builders had a strong understanding of basic engineering principles, balance, and force. They also must have had a clear system of leadership and communication to organize large groups of people for such demanding work. What makes this even more puzzling is the quality of the stonework. The pillars are not rough or uneven. They are carefully shaped, smoothed, and decorated with carvings of animals such as lions, foxes, birds, and snakes. Creating these carvings would have taken great skill and patience. Mistakes could not easily be fixed, especially when working with such hard stone. The effort invested in both the construction and decoration suggests that this site held deep meaning for the people who built it. Perhaps the most confusing part of the story is what happened after Göbekli Tepe was abandoned. After being used for many centuries, the entire site was deliberately buried. Later communities living in the same region did not continue this level of construction. Instead, they returned to building simple shelters and living much simpler lives. There is no clear evidence that the advanced building knowledge shown at Göbekli Tepe was passed down. It appears to have been lost rather than improved upon. This sudden drop in complexity challenges the idea that human progress always moves forward in a straight line. Göbekli Tepe suggests that early humans may have reached a high level of organization and skill, only to lose it later. Whether this loss was caused by climate change, natural disasters, social collapse, or other unknown factors remains unclear. What is clear is that Göbekli Tepe does not fit neatly into the traditional story of human development. Instead, it points to a past that was far more complex, advanced, and mysterious than once believed. Some speculate that the 12,000-year-old lie is the belief that civilization began after the Ice Age. Graham Hancock suggests an advanced human culture existed much earlier, was destroyed by a global catastrophe, and erased from history, leaving only scattered clues, like Göbekli Tepe, to challenge the official story. If Göbekli Tepe marked an ending, what were its builders trying to preserve, and why bury it at all? Keep watching to find out. Göbekli Tepe, the silent farewell of a lost civilization. Göbekli Tepe is now widely seen as the final result of a long cultural journey, not the starting point of civilization. Instead of showing the first attempts at complex human life, the site appears to represent the peak of knowledge and skill that had already been building for many generations. The people who created Göbekli Tepe did not seem to be experimenting or slowly figuring things out. Everything about the site suggests confidence, experience, and deep understanding. The stonework, layout, and symbolism look planned and deliberate, as if the builders already knew exactly what they were doing before construction even began. This challenges the common belief that early humans slowly progressed from simple living into advanced societies. Göbekli Tepe suggests that advanced culture may have existed earlier than expected and reached a high level before disappearing. The idea that Göbekli Tepe marks the end of a process is supported by the way the site was treated when it was no longer in use. After being active for centuries, it was not abandoned or left to fall apart over time. Instead, the entire complex was intentionally buried. Huge amounts of earth, stone, and debris were brought in to completely cover the structures. This was not something that happened by accident or through natural forces. It required planning, effort, and coordination. The builders clearly chose to seal the site, knowing that it would no longer be visible or accessible. As a result, Göbekli Tepe remained hidden and untouched for more than 12,000 years. This act of burial appears to have been done with purpose. The way the site was sealed suggests care rather than destruction. The structures were protected from weather, erosion, and later human activity. This has allowed the site to survive in remarkable condition until modern times. Such an action strongly suggests that the builders understood the importance of what they had created. They did not simply walk away from it. Instead, they made sure it would endure beneath the surface, safe from damage. This points to a deep emotional or cultural connection to the site and what it represented. Many researchers now describe Göbekli Tepe as a time capsule. By burying it, the builders preserved a record of their world at a moment when something important was coming to an end. This could have been the end of their way of life, their belief system, or their cultural traditions. The effort required to bury such a large and complex site shows that this was not a casual decision. It likely held strong symbolic meaning. The people involved may have believed they were closing a chapter in human history and wanted to protect the memory of it for the future. The idea of Göbekli Tepe as a time capsule is closely linked to the possibility of a lost civilization. The skills and knowledge displayed at the site appear too advanced to have appeared suddenly. The builders showed strong abilities in organization, planning, stoneworking, and symbolic expression. This suggests they inherited these abilities from earlier generations rather than inventing them on the spot. Some researchers believe that an older civilization existed before Göbekli Tepe, one that passed down its knowledge and traditions before eventually disappearing. If such a civilization did exist, Göbekli Tepe may represent its final message to the future. It may have been built as a way to gather and preserve the best of that culture in one place before it was lost. The fact that similar levels of construction and symbolism do not appear immediately after Göbekli Tepe was buried supports this idea. Later communities in the same region lived much simpler lives and did not continue building on the same scale. This suggests that important knowledge was lost rather than passed on in full. The disappearance of this advanced understanding raises difficult questions. It suggests that human history may not be a simple story of constant progress. Göbekli Tepe fits this pattern by standing as a preserved reminder of what once existed. Its burial may have been a way to protect a fading legacy rather than abandon it. In this way, Göbekli Tepe forces a new way of thinking about the human past. Rather than seeing civilization as slowly rising from simple beginnings, it suggests that humanity may have experienced cycles of achievement and loss. The site stands as quiet evidence that something important existed long ago and was deliberately preserved, waiting to be rediscovered thousands of years later. If ancient humans were capable of building 12,000-year-old monumental sites with precision and knowledge far beyond what we imagined, what does this tell us about the wider world they lived in and the civilizations that may have existed alongside them? Let's delve deeper. Graham Hancock and the wider world of Göbekli Tepe. Graham Hancock is a researcher and writer who has spent many decades trying to understand something that very few people even think about. He has been investigating the idea that there may have been civilizations long before the ones we are taught about in school. He began this work seriously in the late 80s and continued through the 90s. During this time, he did more than just read books and write papers. He went out into the world. He and his wife spent years traveling to remote places. They spent long periods diving underwater in many different countries. Often, they were guided by local people, fishermen who knew the waters, divers who had seen strange shapes or objects under the water. These local guides pointed out things that Hancock and his wife could investigate more closely. The purpose of these dives was not just to find treasure or sunken ships. It was to look for evidence of lost civilizations, structures, or objects that might have been hidden for thousands of years. Hancock was very careful in his approach. He did not just guess. He recorded everything, documented it, and he had compared it with known histories. He published books about his discoveries, sometimes very large and detailed books, where he explained all of his findings. One of these books became especially important because it summed up much of what he had learned up to that point. Even after years of work and publishing, Hancock did not think he would have to return to this topic. He thought he had explored the question fully. But then he learned about Göbekli Tepe, a site in Turkey that completely changed the way he thought about history. This site was not just another set of old stones or ruins. It was extraordinary. It was a place with massive stone structures, including huge pillars shaped like the letter T. These pillars were carefully placed inside circular or semicircular enclosures. The site was far older than anything that had previously been considered the earliest example of megalithic construction. Other sites, such as the megalithic structures in Malta, were thought to be the oldest, but Göbekli Tepe was thousands of years older. This discovery forced Hancock to reconsider everything he thought he knew about early human civilization. Göbekli Tepe also inspired archaeologists and researchers to look more widely in the surrounding region. Once the site became known, other areas in Turkey began to be studied more closely. Researchers discovered similar structures in neighboring countries such as Syria. They even found related sites in the Jordan Valley, near Jericho. Parts of Cyprus also showed evidence of similar constructions. Archaeologists began referring to these connected sites as part of what they called the Stone Hills civilization. While Göbekli Tepe is the largest and most fully excavated site, it is now clear that it is part of a much larger cultural network. These other sites often had smaller pillars or semi-subterranean circular structures. They shared the same basic style but were not as large or as monumental. The presence of these related sites suggests that Göbekli Tepe was not an isolated event. It was not a single group suddenly inventing something new. Instead, it was the result of a cultural process that had been happening for many generations. It is part of a bigger picture, a picture that spreads across a large part of the Middle East and possibly even beyond. The discovery of Göbekli Tepe helped researchers realize that these ancient peoples were capable of planning, coordinating, and building on a scale far larger than previously imagined. The site alone is remarkable, but when it is considered in the context of other sites in the Stone Hills civilization, it becomes clear that this was a shared culture with traditions, knowledge, and skills that moved across regions. Göbekli Tepe, therefore, is not only a unique site in its own right, but also a window into a much wider and older human story. If Göbekli Tepe represents the peak of a cultural process that had been developing for generations, what can its deliberate construction, use, and eventual burial tell us about the people behind it and the civilization they left behind? Let's learn more. Göbekli Tepe, the end of a cultural journey. Göbekli Tepe is not just a beginning. It is not a first attempt at civilization. Researchers now believe it is the culmination of a process, the peak of achievements that had been developing for many generations. This idea changes the way we understand the early history of humanity. Instead of humans slowly learning to build and organize, the site shows knowledge, skill, and planning at a level that seems fully formed from the start. It is as if the people who built it already knew exactly what they wanted to achieve before even beginning construction. The site shows careful planning in the placement of the stone pillars and in the organization of the enclosures. It is a level of sophistication that goes far beyond what one would expect from hunter-gatherers, who are usually thought to have lived day to day, focused mainly on finding food and survival. Gobekli Tepe was first noticed in the 60s, but its significance was not immediately understood. During surveys, archaeologists saw finely cut stones sticking out from what they thought was a natural hill. At first, they assumed these stones were related to more recent structures and abandoned the site. It was only decades later, when Dr. Klaus Schmidt and the German Archaeological Institute began proper excavations, that the true importance of the site was revealed. Schmidt recognized it as the oldest fully elaborated megalithic site in the world. Today, it is understood that much of the site remains underground. Using modern technology, including ground-penetrating radar, archaeologists know that only a small portion has been fully excavated. This means the site may have even older structures hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered. Göbekli Tepe represents the end of a cultural process rather than its beginning. The site brings together the best achievements of the Stone Hills civilization. It shows that these people had mastered construction techniques, organization, and symbolic expression over generations. They were able to create monumental structures, organize labor, and convey meaning through art and design. After the site was finished, it was deliberately closed and buried. Earth and rubble were placed on top, forming a mound that preserved it for thousands of years. This deliberate act of preservation indicates that the site was deeply meaningful to the people who created it. It was not abandoned by accident. It was deliberately sealed as a kind of time capsule, preserving their accomplishments for future generations. The importance of Göbekli Tepe extends beyond its construction. The site demonstrates that ideas and practices spread across regions in the ancient world. Techniques, cultural practices, and possibly agricultural knowledge moved from Anatolia into Western Europe and beyond. After Göbekli Tepe was buried, however, large-scale cultural projects appear to have declined in the region. Later generations returned to simpler ways of life, and monumental buildings largely disappeared for many centuries. This pattern suggests that knowledge was lost or forgotten, leaving gaps in the development of human civilization. Göbekli Tepe thus stands as a reminder that human history is not a simple linear story of progress. If earlier discoveries have already begun to shake our confidence in the traditional story of human progress, how does Göbekli Tepe force us to question what we truly know about the earliest civilizations? Let's find out. Göbekli Tepe and the challenge to everything we thought we knew. The discussion around Göbekli Tepe has created serious debate about how early human history should be understood. One of the most important issues in this debate is the idea of falsifiability. This simply means asking what kind of evidence would be needed to prove an idea wrong. Critics often say that if an advanced ancient civilization truly existed, then clear signs should be found. These signs usually include metal tools, writing systems, permanent buildings, or advanced technology. Since many of these things have not been found at Göbekli Tepe, some believe the idea of a lost advanced culture should be rejected. However, this argument depends strongly on how the word advanced is defined. Many modern people automatically link advancement with metal, machines, writing, and technology. But ancient societies may not have shared these values. Advancement in the past could have meant something very different. It may have involved strong memory skills, complex oral traditions, shared symbols, and a deep understanding of nature, time, and the sky. These forms of knowledge do not leave behind obvious physical evidence, yet they can still represent a high level of cultural development. There are even ancient traditions that question whether writing is always a good thing. Some stories warn that writing can weaken memory and allow ideas to spread without guidance or wisdom. In this context, choosing not to use writing does not mean people were less capable. It may simply mean they believed memory and spoken knowledge were more powerful and more controlled. From this point of view, the absence of writing or metal tools at Göbekli Tepe does not automatically mean the builders were simple or primitive. One of the most striking facts about Göbekli Tepe is its enormous size. Only a small part of the site has been uncovered so far. Estimates suggest that less than 10% has been excavated. Despite this, underground scans have already revealed hundreds of massive stone pillars still buried beneath the surface. Based on these scans, researchers believe the full site could be up to 50 times larger than what is currently visible. If this is confirmed, Göbekli Tepe would be the largest megalithic site ever discovered anywhere in the world. Another major puzzle is how suddenly the site appears in the archaeological record. Göbekli Tepe does not seem to have clear earlier versions leading up to it. There are no known smaller or simpler structures that show a slow development towards such a complex design. Instead, it appears fully formed, with carefully carved pillars, planned layouts, and symbolic artwork. This sudden appearance raises questions about where the knowledge, planning, and organization came from. Equally important is what is missing from the site. There is no clear evidence that people lived at Göbekli Tepe. Archaeologists have not found houses, cooking areas, trash piles, pottery, or everyday tools. This strongly suggests the site was not a village or town. Instead, it appears to have been a special place used for specific purposes, possibly gatherings, ceremonies, or shared cultural activities. The fact that the site was later deliberately buried adds to the mystery. This burial seems planned and careful, not accidental. The timing of Göbekli Tepe also overlaps with the earliest signs of agriculture in the surrounding region. Farming appears to develop during or shortly after the site was in use. This challenges the common idea that agriculture must come first before large monuments can be built. In this case, organized construction may have come first, helping bring people together and eventually encouraging new ways of producing food. Finally, those who explore alternative explanations argue that asking difficult questions is not a rejection of science. Instead, it is part of the process of discovery. Göbekli Tepe clearly challenges older assumptions about early humans. Whether its builders were advanced hunter-gatherers or part of a wider forgotten tradition, the site forces historians and archaeologists to rethink long-held beliefs. If ancient people could create precise and massive stone structures all over the world, sometimes even underwater, what does this reveal about the knowledge, skills, and societies of our ancestors that we have yet to fully understand? Let's take a closer look. Ancient stone mysteries around the world. All over the world, there are ancient places made of stone that still puzzle scientists, explorers, and historians. These sites show that people long ago were creative, clever, and able to do amazing things, even without modern tools or machines. Some of these sites are on land, some are underwater, and all of them show skills that we still cannot fully explain. They make us wonder how people back then could plan, design, and build things that we today find difficult even with modern technology. One of the most impressive sites is Pumapunku in Bolivia. At first, the stones might look ordinary, just old ruins, but they are far from ordinary. Pumapunku is part of a large temple complex believed to have been built by the Tiwanaku Empire, sometime between 300 and 1000 CE, before the Inca Empire came to power. What makes this site amazing is the precision of the stones. The blocks are carved so perfectly that not even a razor blade can fit between them. Some stones weigh up to 130 tons. Scientists still do not know how people moved them or how they shaped them with such skill. Some people have suggested that an unknown advanced civilization helped, or even that aliens showed the Tiwanaku how to build. Others have said that perhaps mythological beings were involved. The most likely explanation is that the Tiwanaku people themselves were extremely skilled and knew techniques for working stone that we do not fully understand today. In Costa Rica, there are the famous Diquis spheres. These are large, perfectly round stones made around 600 CE. They were made from cooled volcanic magma. To shape them, people may have used small stones to grind them into smooth spheres. Scientists are not sure why these stones were made. Some think they may have been used to mark directions or help with navigation. Others think they might have had an astronomical purpose, helping people track stars or planets. Whatever the reason, the spheres show a careful attention to detail and a high level of skill. In the Middle East, in Jordan and Israel, there are long lines of stones called kites. These stone arrangements date back to about 300 BCE. They may have been used as hunting traps. Ancient hunters could have used the lines to guide animals into pits, where it was easier to capture them. This shows that people back then understood animal behavior very well and could plan structures carefully to help them survive. In Scotland, there is the Cocknos stone, a giant slab measuring about 43 by 26 feet. It has swirling patterns called cup and ring marks. These marks are about 5,000 years old. Scientists are unsure what they mean. Some think they were used to track stars, the moon, or the sun. Others think they were simply art or symbols for rituals. Similar marks are found in other ancient sites worldwide. Another curious object is the copper scroll, found in 1952 in Kuman. This artifact may be about 2,000 years old. It seems to describe hidden treasures like silver and gold, possibly hidden from Roman soldiers. The writing is still undeciphered. Even if the treasure does not exist, the scroll is important for understanding how people protected their wealth and recorded important information long ago. In Peru, the Nazca lines are giant patterns drawn on the desert floor. They include long, straight lines, animals, and shapes. They were made over 2,000 years ago. Some think they were made to communicate with gods or to mark astronomical events. Drones and satellites have helped scientists see them in new ways, but the full meaning is still unknown. Some mysteries are underwater. Near Easter Island, scientists discovered a fossilized section of the ancient ocean floor, about 250 million years old. This helps explain how tectonic plates move and gives a glimpse of Earth's ancient history. In Lake Constance in Europe, there is a 12-mile line of 170 stone cairns under the water, built about 5,500 years ago. Villages may have worked together to make this site for some common purpose. It is called the Underwater Stonehenge because it looks similar to the famous site in England. In Lake Michigan, USA, researchers found an underwater stone circle about 40 feet below the surface. It has an outer circle 40 feet wide and an inner one 20 feet wide. Some stones have carvings of mastodons, animals that went extinct over 10,000 years ago. The site may have been used for hunting or for spiritual purposes. Some Native American tribes believe stones have life and energy, and they may have been placed there to honor the land and animals. Finally, in Japan, the Yonaguni Monument is a massive underwater structure. It has terraces, stairs, and flat surfaces, and covers the size of 5 football fields. Some scientists believe it is the work of a lost civilization, while others think it is natural, formed by erosion. Some stone tools and carvings suggest humans may have built it. All these sites, from Pumapunku to Yonaguni, show that ancient peoples had amazing skills. They could work stone with precision, plan large structures, and create lasting monuments. Even without modern tools, they made works that continue to amaze and puzzle us today. These discoveries remind us that human creativity, knowledge, and cooperation have always been remarkable, stretching far back into history. What do you think about the mystery of Göbekli Tepe? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you for joining us as we explored the shocking truths behind Göbekli Tepe and its 12,000-year-old mystery. If this deep dive helped you see the secrets, the puzzles, and the hidden knowledge left by its builders, don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video on your screen to uncover more astonishing discoveries from the ancient world. See you there.